Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something different. I'm here sitting on my 1958 Series 1 Land Rover. Now, if you've been around this channel for a while, you know that this channel is mostly related to my tractors and the restoration of those projects. But I thought it would be wise of me just to make a couple of videos on my Land Rover just for myself. The reason I started this channel was I was filming all these projects so we could keep track of them, and I thought, why not upload them to YouTube? So I thought, may as well throw this up as well. So if you're only here for the tractor content, don't worry, there won't be a whole lot of videos on these, but this is for me just to really document this project, because ultimately this project is my second oldest running project now. I bought this vehicle 5 years ago, and believe it or not, it was a good running vehicle which had just been recently registered. But I started to make it safe. I looked at getting the diffs done, the suspension, the steering, the brakes, and with any project and with any vehicle, especially one that's over 50, 60 years old, we started finding problems. And once you start finding problems, you look deeper and you find more problems, and eventually you're left with nothing but a chassis. So anyway, we started about 5 years ago. I bought the vehicle 4 years ago. We stripped it down. Well, a mechanic stripped it down for the first time. He stripped it all down and eventually just disappeared. And it really annoyed me to the point of seeing this car every day, not being able to drive it, not being able to use it, not knowing where the parts were, what he had got to. But I really, really wanted to get this thing going. And then literally maybe 12 months passed. Nothing had happened, and eventually I reached out to some other people to help, and that led to finding more problems. Other things were missing, things we hadn't noticed, and we just went down the rabbit hole of trying to get this thing going. But initially we found that, you know, the springs were shot, suspension, all your consumables like your tie rods, all your bushes needed to be done. But then when we started looking at the chassis, we started to notice a few things were a bit strange. So the chassis was sitting a little bit funny, and it turns out that it had had a hit somewhere at some point in its life. So we think it had a impact on the driver's side, which we didn't really realize until we looked at the firewall. The firewall had a bit of a dent in it, and it had been pushed back or repaired. And the vehicle was just sitting a little bit funny. It always sagged low on the right-hand side. So we straightened out the chassis, but then we noticed there were little bits of rust and things which are quite common in these things, but things which we needed to have a look at. So we went through and replaced everything properly, spent 20 or 30 hours of work just doing patches and repairing it to make it safe once again. When we stripped down the firewall was really good, no rust in it. There were holes through it though. So in some of the past overlanding journeys, the previous owner had put auxiliary power points, switches, gauges in the dash. So we had to patch those holes up so that it would look back to standard. We wanted to get rid of all the 240 volt electric plugs, the USB ports, and just bring it back to a bare Land Rover firewall. So when we stripped it and had it sandblasted, we noticed that underneath the serial tag was another serial tag. So this made me very nervous, considering that I'd really looked at, you know, the initial serial tag, which was the external one, evidenced by the green paint, which we'll get to in a second. We were able to confirm though that this serial tag did match the serial tag on the chassis, so we were right. But putting two and two together, if this vehicle was in a accident at one stage or early on the firewall had been rusted out, it makes sense that they maybe replaced it with a firewall from this vehicle, and I'm not sure why, but potentially they just stuck that over the top. So anyway, strange things you find when you start doing these sort of things, but can confirm that this number matches the chassis, so it is the 1958 88-inch we think it is. So alongside the other problems with the usual wear and the usual consumables were the panels. Now, being a farm ute at one stage in its life, and then also doing overlanding where I'd been subjected to hell on some of the Australian outback roads, we noticed that the rear tub had a lot of sag in it. Now the mounts and the strengthening and the struts underneath were all okay, just needed to be a little bit fixed, but especially the floor had massive stretch marks in it, and we decided it was not salvageable. So we basically de-skinned the entire thing, and we've kept all the exterior skin, and we've built a brand new tub internally utilising the existing skin and the existing supports. So it's come up fantastic. Now the front fenders have had a massive amount of holes and rivets and drill marks and stretch marks and sticks and stones, so it's a lot of work to go into those. So we're not sure whether we're going to try and replace the front wings. I did buy some wings, but instead of buying 88-inch wings, I bought 86, so back to the drawing board there. Then once we built the new tub, or Rob built the new tub, did a fantastic job on that, we went to fit the tailgate to it, and during its overlanding, it had two jerry cans mounted to the rear tailgate. And obviously with that weight, the aluminium tailgate was never going to hold it. I'd never even noticed the tailgate had been completely replaced with steel. So it was a homemade tailgate, which meant we had to find a new tailgate. And we basically got the frame from a Series 1, which a customer of mine actually had. So I swapped some tractor parts for this, and then we just reskinned that with a new piece of aluminium. So yeah, we basically have a brand new tailgate for it. Just another one of the things that you don't notice while you're starting off these projects. So where we're at now, once we get the diffs cleaned up and painted, we can start reassembling. I've got all the galvanised components to go back to be regalved. Now the colour on this was green. It was basically a dark, deep green, not a military green, not a British racing green, just a really terrible green. Now the car underneath was originally a sage green, as we found on some of the internal panels. But we are going to do something different because pretty much every Series 1 Land Rover you see is green. So we're going to go for a different colour. I'm not a rivet counter, and this won't be a rivet counter car. The car, the chassis, the panels, everything about it being an 88-inch, it's just not really super desirable to the point where you want to make it exactly perfect concours spec. This is a car that I want to be able to drive around and have fun and build my own memories with. So we're not going for an original paint. We're going to go for a late model Land Rover colour, which I'm really excited about, but we'll hold that off for the next video. But ultimately, yeah, I just wanted to really keep track of some of this progress, show some of these photos so that I can always go back and look back on how far it's come and where we were, because it's been incredibly frustrating, and I'm just really looking forward to the day we can get it back on the road, because man, these projects take time, and when you do deal with something so old, it goes to show that there's a lot of value in buying one that's perfect if you want to go that way. But thanks for watching.